The time has come once again to speak as witches and wizards do. I'm Daniel Zubor,
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
and we're your hosts for the Think Like a Wizard podcast. Welcome to season 4, episode 6. It's time to clean house, or, as it's also been told to me, get your shit together. That last one brought to you by Hecate, because she means business these days. She wants basically people to get their shit together. She gave you cake and power and from that cake and wisdom. And now she wants people to get their shit in gear, or shit in gear,
Together.
shit together, because it's that time. That's what I keep getting over and over and over. It's that time. Look
And
at
for
yourself.
anyone that's not familiar, Hecate is the mother of witches. So, that's perfect for this particular podcast. And when she says get your shit together, this means that you think you're dealing with a lot now. Get it together because there's a lot more coming. It's like a heads up as much as
Yeah,
anything. Just sort of really get it together, otherwise you won't be able to handle the rest.
yeah. And it's funny, right? I was just thinking about this because we were just saying this before we started recording, and I find it weird to use the names like Lilith, Hecate, or even speaking of other deities, because it's like, not that we're anti-religious on the podcast, but it's not for us. So to speak in those words and to say, "Oh, Hecate's got something," it seems weird to me. But I get it. Like the entity is right here, like talking to me. Well, actually, she's further back in the background, but you know what I mean. That idea of here's a name that's known even religiously, and we're using it even though we're not specifically religious.
It's it's interesting because we grow up with an awful lot of dogma
Mm,
that comes from the predominant Christian religion. It's predominant in most Western
mm,
countries anyway. And the idea is you can't say certain names, you can't say certain words. In Judaism, you have Hashem, which is the name.
right.
It's you don't say the name. And in the mythology of Lilith, you have the thing that made her very different was she was given the secret name of God. And this was given to her by Elohim, who is the female God. So God isn't one being, it's two. And
Right.
like a mother-father type thing. This is according to mythology, right?
Mm,
And so Lilith was given this extra power that Adam didn't have. And she was actually created before Adam. He was still asleep when she woke.
mm,
So, anyway, the name is only to be used under certain circumstances. And with Christianity, you're basically told you have to have a go-between, right? If it's Catholicism,
mm,
well, you have to go through the priest. You can't do it yourself. Like, who are you to have a direct line? Um, in Judaism, you have more of a direct line, but you still need a rabbi, which means teacher,
right.
to interpret for you. It's not that you have to go through them, but you need to rely on their wisdom for interpretation. And in Islam, you've got the mullahs who
Mhm.
are going to tell you how to live your life and how to interpret things. So we always have a step, a block between where we are and the deity that we're trying to seek. And when you look at something like witchcraft, you don't have that. There's no block, but we grew up expecting blocks,
Right.
believing that they existed, and so we look for them. And then it feels a little weird if you're going to talk directly about something
Hmm.
that Well, it's not the God that I was told existed, or it's not the way I was told it is. This is something different, and it feels a little weird, right? But that doesn't make it wrong. It's just going against the indoctrination of your childhood.
Well, I mean, and it's interesting, right? Because in my entourage, I say open quote, close quotes, that I've got several entities that are gods in other religions. They don't want me to say their names, but it's funny and I find it weird, but because I always kind of look at, well, we've discussed this before, right? The names are what they tell you to call yourself. And if you talk to them, if you talk to other people, you're allowed to use this version of the name, right?
There's a lot of importance in the name.
Right. So there's
It
a few whose
really
names I
is,
can't give. Yeah.
which is, it's an interesting thing because names, I think, are hugely important. And in um, English society, anyway, in the Victorian
Mm,
era, for example, Regency, around those
mm,
times, it was very important who said your name and who didn't, who knew your name and who didn't. You wouldn't gift your name left, right, and center. You'd only tell it to certain people. I don't mean nobody knew your name, it was just not
mhm.
everybody could call it you, or they
Right.
wouldn't use your first name. There was a lot of etiquette around that. And we've not only lost that to a massive extent, but look at the names now. A lot of names aren't really names. They're either a strange jumble of letters that don't actually
Mm,
make sense. You can pronounce, I mean, sometimes you can't pronounce them. If you look at Elon Musk's kids, good grief, what did he name them? You can't do anything with that. So what does that do to that person's power when their name is not a name? I think it's disempowering to have a name that's not a name. Now, I
mhm,
don't mean you have to fit within certain parameters, but just the word means something. And if the word doesn't have a meaning,
mm.
then it's not a name.
Well, that's what I was going to say, right? Just giving your kid a name, but not, how was I going to put that? You have to empower the name.
It
That's it.
needs to mean something.
Yeah.
It has a purpose. The name represents something and it gives the bearer of the name certain qualities. Like,
Right.
think about people you've known who all have the same name and certain
Mm,
characteristics in common. So I'm going to go hog wild here now, and I'm
mm.
going to throw a name out there and say that I come across people with this name
Right.
who have certain problems in common, and the name is Caden.
Okay.
A lot of
I
Caden.
think I
Whenever
know Caden actually. Yeah.
I see the name Caden, I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And usually we do. There's some stuff going on there. Samuel is another name that can
Mm,
actually be quite difficult. And if you look at the myth of Lilith, then she created from her grief and her
mm,
anger, she created Samael to
right.
be her partner. And he represents all of that anger and loathing and like all the negative things from
You
her
know?
was
Yeah.
embodied in him.
I was
So,
gonna say anyone who's watched the Hellboy movie, you've heard that name.
okay, funnily enough, I have not watched the
No. In the
Hellboy
first
movie,
movie,
but
well, because it's Rasputin who's the antagonist, and he
okay.
brings out Samael
Aha.
to to stir some trouble. They end up defeating him, but he becomes a major plot device in the movie, or he's the major threat.
And he would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like me personally, I'm literally named after the saint. That's what my dad tells me. He says when I saw you, he says I decided to name you after the saint. I said okay.
Now you
That's
see, I think of one of the tribes of Israel because the tribe of Dan is a
okay.
tribe of Israel. And Daniel is my second son's second name, his middle name. So it's, again, names have meanings.
Yeah.
And I was very particular. I spent so long figuring out names for my kids that had certain meanings and what have you. It was And some people throw in names that really aren't names.
Well, and that's
And
the
I
thing.
wonder how that's affecting society globally as that happens more.
Well, I
Um,
think we go ahead because I was
because
going
of the power of the name, if you don't have it, if you're not anchored to something, then what does that do? And that's literally an open question to what is that experience? What does that do?
yeah. Well, and I find also people who aren't connected to their name. Like a child could be named something, but if they never connect to it, then it also has no power.
Right. And sometimes you come across people who they don't use their first name, they use their middle name
Right.
as their first name. Now, I mean, again, that means something. There's a point to that. That no, this represents me, that doesn't. And some names bring difficulty with them, I think, and other names bring other kinds of experiences. But names are so interesting.
Yeah. I'll throw this in. My last name actually comes with a certain bit of infamy. In Canada, especially if you're like in Quebec, it's associated with crime.
Aha,
And
lovely.
yeah, well, actually, and yeah, depending on where you are, sometimes people are afraid of you for having this last name.
Oh, okay.
And then if you head south in the United States, it's associated with voodoo as well.
Oh,
I
interesting.
mean, I think it gets its original infamy because originally the Dubois didn't want to be Catholic. They were going to be Protestants with the Huguenots, and then they got booted out of France. So,
Right.
and I would say, ironically, a lot of Dubois who live in the New World are Catholic. So it seems weird. You got booted out of France for not wanting to be Catholic. Why are so many of you Catholic now?
Right.
Yeah.
Because everything moves like a pendulum. It starts here, it goes over there, it
Yeah.
comes back. Yeah.
I would imagine there's probably some kind of survival mechanism kicked in somewhere. You might as well jump back in with the group.
Could be, could be. But just think how much importance over the centuries people have placed on a name.
Yeah.
People die for names. People are married because of them and divorced because of them and
Mhm.
all kinds of things. What's in a name? An awful lot. And yet, in this day and age, we don't have necessarily names, or they are intentionally given to a different, like you'll use a name like Cameron, who you
Right.
would expect to be male, but you give it to a female.
Mm.
Or Mackenzie, these kind of names are now either way.
Yes.
And I'm not suggesting anything in particular other than I'm curious, like, what does that do? Because it shifts the power.
Yes.
Is that a good thing? I don't know.
And I'm going to throw it out there. Checking your relationship to your name is part of cleaning house. How do you feel about your
Absolutely.
name? How do you feel about the name? Even if you're actually going by a nickname at this point instead of an actual name, because that's all part of having a name having power for you. So probably the first thing is, yeah, how do you feel about your name? Your basic precursor or the first thing most people know about your identity. Not everyone, but the first
It's
thing
your
people usually know about your
signature.
identity. Yeah.
It's your signature in the world is your name. I
Yeah.
mean, what do people put on your gravestone if you have one? They put your name. That's the
Hmm.
first thing. You know
Yeah.
what is remembered of you? Often it's going to be a name, right? Like
Hmm.
Shakespeare. Who was Shakespeare? I don't know, but you know the name.
Right.
It's what we leave behind. It's what makes our mark, and things are attached to it. Like think of the Borgias, right?
Yeah.
Lucrezia Borgia. What do you think with a name like Borgia? Right away, your mind goes to poison, right? Intrigue,
Yeah.
poison, very badly
Yeah.
behaved popes, and all that kind of thing.
Yes.
And that's what you get from that name. So there's definitely power there, and I think it's worth an exploration as to whether yours is the correct version for you, and I'm channeling all this stuff I'm saying at the
Mm,
moment, but whether your name is the correct version for you, and if you use a nickname, is it is it energetically aligned with you or
yes.
not? And just because others give it to you doesn't mean it's correct. And I'm using
Exactly.
the word correct a lot, which sounds very sort of black and white and judgmental, but actually it's more a case of, is it a round peg in a round hole or not?
Mm,
Does it fit you? Do you work with it well? Does it represent you?
yeah.
And if those things are off, even a little bit, then they're off a lot.
Laws repercussions.
Yeah. Whew. Getting a lot of channeling going on here. Holy
Yeah.
smokes.
Well, it's funny because before I even came online, I was thinking about, do we do that every once in a while? Do we fall into we're giving a lecture, or are we actually just having a discussion? And
Yeah.
because I mean, when we were talking about community, right? Like you were worried that this is coming across more of a lecture when we were talking about discrimination. So I was like, you know what? Some valid points there because it's not the point of this podcast to give a lecture. It's the point of this podcast to just discuss things candidly. But I guess what's probably happening is there's one thing, there's giving information, which can then
Mhm.
sound like a school lecture, as opposed to moralizing and saying, listen, you have to do it this way, that kind of lecture.
Yeah, that time when I said, I kept saying,
Yeah.
I'm kind of concerned this sounds like I'm lecturing, is because that's what I was getting out of it. I sounded like I was
Yeah.
lecturing to me. It bothered me.
Mm.
This time what I'm getting out of it is just I'm prodding people. I'm
Yeah.
throwing things out there to question and to consider. I'm not telling you
Right.
it's anything. I'm just saying it's something. What is it? Go look. So I feel differently about this one, but that other one, boy, it felt
Yeah.
very lectury to me. It was really
Yeah.
bothering
Yeah.
me. And I'm the one doing it. So it's like, oh
Yeah.
my God, if it bothers me, what's it doing to other people?
Right. And it's funny because it was another thing I was thinking a couple of days ago before I got onto this lecture. For people familiar with the manga and the comic and the anime of Dragon Ball Z, right?
Yes.
At the end of the series, when so Goku's doing the spirit bomb thing where he gathers all the ki he can to make that his final attack,
Mhm.
and so they have the attention of the whole world, and so Vegeta, right? For those of you not familiar, is an alien, just like same species as Goku, which all look human. But anyways, he gives his rousing speech is that okay, people, it's time now for you as a planet to, rise up and become a warrior species, and take your place in the universe and whatever. And no one's listening. So then you have, and depending which version of the show you saw, Mr. Satan or Hercule, the world champion, the kind of think of a professional wrestler, especially of the circa of the 1980s. He comes up, he's like, okay, I got this. Puts him aside, and then he gives the rousing speech that gets everyone together to give their key for the final attack that saves the day. But it's, and I was kind of thinking about it. Sometimes that feels like our relationship on here. I do the Fajita thing, I say whatever, and then Michaela goes, okay, I got this, and puts the more appropriate words to it.
No idea. I mean, I'm sure anybody that listens regularly knows by now that we have no idea what we're going to say till we say it. But it was just it was interesting to me because I was looking at things from different directions kind of at the same time. I could
Mm-hmm.
hear what I was saying,
Right.
and I have this voice in my head saying, "You are lecturing, would you stop? Holy smokes." And then but it's been
Yeah.
channeled and it's like, yeah, but I'm not lecturing, I'm just saying what's coming. And there's this internal argument going on.
Well,
It
because I'll
was
say to
so
you too,
funny.
because that whole episode, I was doing that too, especially when we were talking about discrimination. I'm like, can we lay off on this? It's like we're talking about building a community, and I get it. I know that some people can't build communities because they're too busy in their own head and in their biases, and so they can't let things in. But I'm thinking, like, can we stop now already? Because I was there too, but I was like, okay, well, keep
My
going,
my
because that's what I keep
thought
getting.
my thought on this is when we get stuck like that,
Right.
that's a sign for us and for the listener to pause
Mm,
and kind of consider, what are we missing? Because it keeps coming until you get it. And
right.
we weren't getting it. I mean, there has to have been something that we missed there. So that's a task for us to work on.
But yeah,
What did
and
we miss?
yeah, and for the listeners, when we ended that episode, we had a huge discussion after that. We were like, why aren't we recording this?
Right.
And that was kind of like the, well, I think maybe the other thing was what was necessary, and what we're talking about now is that's just for us, you know. But it would have been really useful, like the follow up with that discussion after would have been really interesting for you guys. But that more of us channeling that quote unquote lecture was apparently what was needed for someone somewhere listening to the episode or who will be listening to the episode.
Yeah. And for the rest of you, I do apologize. It was
Yeah.
bothering me too.
But it's funny because part of cleaning house is also me and Michaela cleaning house.
Oh yeah. In so many ways. So many ways. I have so much going on in different directions. It's really interesting. I think also focus is coming up with cleaning house. There's getting rid of the clutter, and this is a metaphor for any area of your life that needs work, but especially spiritual. I think
Right.
getting rid of the clutter, the things that distract, the visual noise, the auditory noise, the belief noise, because
Mm-hmm.
your beliefs come from somewhere, right? You have heard a thing, decided that it works, and so you've taken it on as a truth. But it's no more than a belief, and you may not have even consciously chosen it. You just heard it and heard it often enough that you believed it.
Right.
And we find that, if you want to look into politics, and no, I don't
Mm-hmm.
intend to go there in any depth today, but if you want to look in that area, people speak to beliefs that are held with zero rationality behind them, no evidence, no benefit, but they hold these beliefs anyway. And people always like to have confirmation of what they believe in
Right.
so that they can keep believing it and be comfortable. And we see that. It's, just because you hear it all the time doesn't make it true, but it does make it very hard to dust those cobwebs away, to clean house and get rid of the things that might be kind of comfortable because you get back up on it, but actually, no, it's not working and you're going the wrong way.
Yeah. It's funny. I'll share something. So when I was reminded of it today. So I had said on the podcast before, right? One of the things I do or that I do now, but I didn't do before was like if I would hear someone on my side of whatever the discussion is say something, but I didn't like it, but I thought, well, you know what? That's not really what they meant, that kind of thing, right? And then you try to make excuses for it. And I thought, well, if I'm doing that for my side, when I hear people on the other side say that, and I look at it like, oh my God, what are you doing making up excuses for this person? Well, you know, well, hello, mirror. This is you. You're doing the same thing. So then I thought, okay, in the very least, depending on certain topics, I'll try to watch the other side's perspective and then check myself to see where I'm doing it. And today I reminded myself of like, I'm almost tired of watching almost anything vaguely political these days because it almost doesn't matter what side you are on politically. Someone is doing it. Someone is posting something. They're forgiving their side, something they would crucify the other side for, and vice versa. Like, and I'm like, I can't watch anything anymore. I'm trying to get good information, but it's like,
The division is stark, and it's just getting bigger because we lost the ability, I think, some time ago, if we ever had it really, to discern between our beliefs being incorrect and us being incorrect, right? There's a very big difference. For example, if you're given criticism, how does that land? And typically, none of us like criticism, right? You're not going to like it, but some people can brush it off. However, that's not very many people, and typically they're exactly the ones who ought to pay attention to it. And think of the Tesla dude, right? He doesn't care at all about criticism, and yet if anybody should be listening on this planet right now, it would be him. So, it's an interesting dilemma, right? But typically, if we get criticism, we feel like, oh no, I'm a bad person. Oh no, I did this terrible thing. They don't like me. It becomes about us rather than the thing we did or didn't do. And we have difficulty shedding that. Now, when you come to strong beliefs, polarizing
Mm,
beliefs that put you either in the popular camp or the unpopular camp,
right.
that's a very big deal. And either way, you kind of double down. If you're in the unpopular minority, hello,
Mm,
then you double down on that because you kind of have to, right? You're defending yourself and you feel it very strongly. And if you're right, well, aha, now the fun has started because everybody agrees with me, so I'm going to go kick ass. And that's really seductive for the individual. So where that all came from, I'm not entirely sure, but it does
mm,
involve cleaning house because cleaning
yeah,
out those beliefs that are just crazy, they don't help. They're not working, but you're holding them anyway. What would it be like if you just let it go and didn't hold that belief? What if you questioned it? Ooh, what would that
yeah.
do?
Well, that's the thing. So we'll sneak this one in for a second. When you said that, it made me think about. I didn't see the episode. I just keep hearing clips of this speech on Rick and Morty, where people are booing him, and he says, "I don't care that you're booing me. I've seen what makes you cheer."
Oh, nice line. I like it.
Yeah, it's not the full line. I paraphrased it because I can't remember the exact full line. But yeah, basically, people were booing him, and he was like, "How is this supposed to bother me? I've seen what makes you cheer." And basically, it would be like, it would be worse if you were cheering me. Booing me lets me
That's
know I'm doing the right thing.
that's actually very wow. That's
Yeah.
quite profound. I like it. By the way, before the episode started, we were talking about I have a pendulum that is green jade and amethyst, so I thought I'd look it up. And it's a harmonious blend of healing and spiritual awakening, and it's believed to bring emotional balance and clear thought.
Mm,
Very good thing to have in a pendulum.
nice.
And if you haven't worked with pendulums, listener, then consider it because, and Willa in particular,
Mm.
consider it because if you'll know if it works or not. It's one of those things where you're just making it move. Okay, but you'll know if you are.
Well, I'd even offer this, like, because in the course I teach, where I teach basically tarot as my basically foundations of magic, a pendulum is in there. And one of the things I'll tell people is that, is your body moving in a way that affects it? Yes. Is it you telling your body what to do? That's different.
And funnily enough, in theta healing, there are different ways to do muscle testing. And
Right.
muscle testing is your body telling you yes and telling you no. And one of the things involves using your fingers,
Mm-hmm.
the other is your whole body. Which
Right.
way does your body move? So it's exactly what you just said. You use that in theta healing.
Hmm. Well, it's what I was going to say was, because I've tested this over the years through using Ouija boards, pendulums, even, when you pull tarot cards. Yes, it's not that the object is moved by the energy specifically, but it's your body's reaction to the energy that's telling the pendulum what to do. It's moving the pendulum. I've tested this a lot of times. What was I going to say? Because your body, your nervous system, being a living thing, you are directly affected by the flow of energy. Whereas a material object is within the energy, it's not as moved by the energy directly. So yeah, a lot of times when you see something move, it's your body or it's something else living that's done it. It-
I'm,
but it
I'm
doesn't remove what it has to tell you.
I'm sitting here grinning because as Danielle is talking,
Mhm.
I've got my arm resting
Mhm.
across my chair, so it's not moving of its own volition as
Right.
far as is humanly possible, right? And I'm holding my pendulum as steadily as I
Right.
can, and it is going in a significant circle, like a large circle,
Oh, yeah.
anti-clockwise or counterclockwise, depending on where your English comes from. Um, which is just such an interesting
Hmm.
thing to see because yeah, it's actually in the opposite direction to the
All
what I
right.
would have anticipated.
For the people at home, you have your tests to run.
Oh, if you're going to try a pendulum, test with it first. First of all, wear it for a day, like
Hmm.
keep it in your pocket or something, but get it connected to you. And then when you're going to test it, give it yes, no answers. Right? That's very simple because how is a pendulum going to give you a complete sentence? It's going to respond positively or negatively. So start with show me yes and see what you get.
Hmm.
And then tell it to stop and then show me no and see how that looks differently. And if it doesn't look differently, then stop and just keep it with you for a little bit longer and then try again because you should get two distinctly different movements. Um, I do. Like it works for me, but you might not get yet the yes that you get one day might not look the same another time. So always check. But after that, have fun
Calibrate
with
your
the
instrument.
pendulum. Hmm?
Calibrate your instruments.
Yeah, basically. Mhm. But remember, ask clear questions and you have an option of yes or no for your answer. You are
Yes.
working with a crystal here. It's not going to give you complete paragraphs or
Right.
anything.
I will offer you this. This is something I was talking to my mother because for those of you listening by now, you know my mother is at least an on and off student of mine. And one of the things we were doing, because she was asking me a bunch of questions, and I said, "Here's what we're going to do." I says, "You haven't used your cards in for a while, so go get your cards." I said, "But before you ask any questions for your cards, really work deep down on what you actually want to know. Okay, this is important and part of cleaning house." So I left. I did some stuff. I came back like an hour later. She had just finished writing her question.
Okay,
I wrote
very
down
good.
notes of why she was asking the question, what she expected, like that kind of stuff, and then had her question. The interesting thing is, and she'll be fine with me sharing this because whatever she can contribute, she's happy to contribute to people's wisdom. So we end. She pulled her cards. She wrote down what what the card said and how she interpreted the answer. And then she asked me to look at it, and I said, okay. And I knew this was a teaching moment because this was a teaching moment. That's how I kept getting. Because normally I would just say, okay, well that's how you interpret it. That's fine. But I went through and I like went through with a fine tooth comb through her answers, how she interpreted the answer, and I said, my big question was, how does this relate to your question? I says, you phrased your question a certain way, and because you took time to phrase your question, you put a lot of intention into that question. I said, so how does your interpretation of your answer match the question you asked? Because they didn't match. Her interpretation of the cards did not match the question she asked. So we kind of went through.
Interesting.
Well, she had asked, her thing was, if I'm, having sorry, if it's my intuition kicking in or I'm having a vision, how do I know? And she pulled three cards. And basically, I'm looking at the cards, I'm looking at the description, and I'm like, they gave you the answer, but that wasn't her interpretation because she wasn't thinking about literally what her question was. How do I know if I'm having a vision or some kind of insight? She just started interpreting the insight she wanted an answer to instead of the.
Mm.
And what really drove it home for me was the third card she pulled was described as it's like being struck by lightning. You'll get a flash of insight and then it'll kind of linger, but the moment will pass, but it'll linger with you. Well, that's a vision, that's an insight. But she couldn't understand how to tie that to the vision she had. And I'm like, because it's not about your vision, because that was her disconnect. She asked, how do I know if I'm having a vision? But she interpreted all her results as answering the vision she had or
So
explaining the
she
vision
asked
she
a
had.
question at part A, but was answering B and C.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting.
Because when I looked through the cards she pulled and I looked at the, because she wrote on the descriptions, because she's got a wildlife inspired tarot deck. So the descriptions and stuff are a little bit different and it uses themes of nature. So when I was looking at the descriptions, I'm like, well, these three cards you pulled are telling you what it feels like to have a vision. The actual question you asked. Because
How
she was
interesting.
confused, because that's why she asked me to look at it, because she was confused why it, to her it didn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, of course it doesn't make sense to you because you're not looking at the question you wrote down.
So it was answering the question she asked,
Yeah,
not the question she wanted to know about.
right.
That is actually really good to mention right now, because
Yeah.
how often do we do that? You know, we in behavior analysis, for example, I will find that somebody comes to me with a particular issue.
Right.
Here's one I can mention from a coaching client. I won't mention names,
Right.
but she came to me. I really need help with time management. Like my time management's
Mm.
terrible. I need help. Okay, let's have a look at that. You know, what are you doing? And I soon found out that that wasn't her problem. She thought that was her solution.
Mm-hmm.
Her problem was that she felt she didn't have enough money and she needed to make
Right.
more and therefore needed more time. But here's the deal, it went deeper than that.
Right.
She did not have a problem with not enough money. She had a problem with disconnection from money. She
Right.
didn't actually know how much money she got. And the other thing was, she didn't know how many subscriptions to things she had got. And when
Oh.
we worked on the stories behind money, like where
Mm-hmm.
does your money story come from your parents, for example, and the group that you grew up in, you know, the society, the other kids around you, and so on. And we have stories about money. You know, money is the root of all evil, for example. Well, do you want to have a whole lot of it if that's your thought?
Yes.
Probably not. You know, so we worked on her stories. It took about 3 months to go through everything from start to finish, but she ended up in such a great space that she realized not only do I not need time management, but I can actually work less and have more money. And she
Mm.
saved something like $1,500 in subscriptions every month because she literally had stuff that she'd signed up for because it was VIP and it made her feel important.
Ah.
And then she forgot she had it. And there were loads of things like that. And we started digging through and finding it. And it was like, no, girl, you don't need time management. Your time's fine. That's not the problem. So, but she came to me with this burning problem that she wanted solving. And if I tried to solve that, we'd probably still be working on it
Mm.
because it wasn't the actual issue.
Right.
She was asking the wrong question.
That's right. And if there's a takeaway from this episode, people, clean house, but no, it needs to be cleaned. Understand what's something that needs to be cleaned, what doesn't need to be cleaned, or needs to be focused on, not focused on. That's the heart of this particular part of the discussion. It's the don't go chasing things you don't need to chase, especially when they're not the problem.
Yeah, I wouldn't accept the first thing you think,
Mm.
right? Like in her case, time management, it made sense that, well, I want to make more money, therefore I need
Mm.
to use my time better because that's what society tells you. If you want to make more money, you have to work harder, right? But no, she had to stop pushing money away from her and pay attention to what she did have and then decide what she wanted to do with it consciously rather than unconsciously. So she really needed to clean a lot of those old stories out and recognize them in the first place so that she could clean them out. And
Mm.
now she's in such a good space. You know, it's like, oh, I'm fine now and happy as anything. And she feels so much lighter because she got rid of the stuff that she didn't know was weighing her
Right.
down. So a lot of that cleaning house is you got to look at it first and really pay attention to, is that question I'm asking the question or is it what I think is the solution? Is it the question or is it a side track so that I don't have to look at the question? You know, we are complex creatures who will get in our own way
Right.
given half a chance. We do it all the time. Um, Again, it's a fascinating thing. I wish I had answers for all of these, but I probably wouldn't still be on the planet if I did have the answers. So there is that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, I think people need to, yeah, need to give this a second to marinate. So, for you people listening, pause the episode for a second, really think about what was just spoken about, because dead air is the killer of the podcast. So,
And thank you so much to Danielle's mom for the
mm,
valuable input because you actually sparked off everything I
mhm.
just said.
Yeah. Well, because it's the being able to look at yourself and seeing what you really need or what's really going on with you is going to improve your magic vastly, because you're not getting in the way of the energy flow, because you're not putting, you're not throwing in things that'll make eddies and and rapids and stuff like that. You're letting the flow be pure. The more you're focused on who you are, the more you understand it, the more refinement you give to your own development, and probably a bunch of other words that are not coming to me right now.
Well, to put it really bluntly, you're not, if you could really pay attention to getting the correct question, then
Mm.
you won't be pushing on a pull door,
Yes. Yes.
basically. And how many of us do that? And then, boy, just like banging your head on a wall, doesn't it feel
Yeah.
good when you stop?
Yeah.
Woof. And we all do it. It's part of the learning process. The trick is to not keep doing it.
Right. That is absolutely important. Hecate nodded with approval there.
Phew. Thanks. Can I have a break?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's something to consider, right? When you're having a difficult time, and we've said this on the podcast a bunch of times, it's that if you keep reliving the same problem over and over again, there's something you haven't learned yet.
Oh, 100%. There's no question about that one. Anything that's in a loop is telling you something important and you haven't got the point yet. And a perfect example of that is when we had that podcast episode with the lecturing and the kind of
Mhm.
circular
Yeah.
comments and what have you. And we were it was a loop. That, ladies and gentlemen, was a real-time loop that you can
Yeah.
go back and listen to if you have the fortitude. Um, and just sort of consider, wow, where are they stuck? What keeps coming up over and over again, but it's not quite right.
Yeah.
There's some piece that needs to be there, and we didn't quite grasp it. And I mean, that shows you too that we're not setting ourselves up to be perfect
Right.
examples. We're just like real.
Well, this actually sets up perfectly for, I think it does, for what we were discussing beforehand. You said make sure to, or not make sure, but we should talk about this on the episode. And we were talking about realizing, how do we start that? So your physical body is limited and has a limited existence time, and then you go back to being spiritual. So from the spiritual perspective, when spirits look at you, they're like, yeah, okay, but you're only momentarily inconvenienced, and then you'll be a spirit again. And so what? Because we were talking about, if you remember from last episode, I said there was a trickster that watches over the lake that both me and Willa, you know, have grown up in. And, my sister has a cottage that used to belong to my grandparents. And we were talking about like that kind of spurred off a conversation about, yeah, well, yeah, tricksters are looking at it like, oh, this is a fun thing. It's limited. It's fun to tease you right now, but then you'll be out of it and you'll be away from you'll no longer have a body and you'll be a spirit again. So it's not the same, it's not as deep, you know, for spirits when they're looking at us as it is for us who are living this experience.
And we're attached to the
Yeah.
physical body that we're in. That's kind of part of the experience. So when you're really attached to something, everything matters, everything is important. Whereas for a spiritual being, they don't have that attachment or that connection. So it really isn't significant. So if you look at, and I mentioned this before the podcast, but if you look at your mythologies and you can pick one, and I'm going to go with the Bible right
Mm,
now. And yes, I said that was a
mm,
mythology because it is. And if you look at that, look at all of the millions of people that are killed and horrible
mm,
tortures that happen, and turning into stone, and I don't know, getting body parts chopped off, and God knows what. Like all kinds of terrible things happen. And it's really not the point, actually. The point is where it was getting to, and the message that's being sent. But the individual, how could people suffer like that? It's kind of, I get this image of a, a spiritual being shrugging their shoulders, basically, like,
mm,
what's the big deal? What's your problem? It's not that important,
mm.
because literally in the grand scheme of things, what we have here is it's just a moment. And so what will you do with your moment?
Mm.
But worrying about what other people are doing or other things are doing with your moment is a bit of a waste of energy. Like it's a misdirection because they don't see it the same way.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating when a disaster will occur, for example, and somebody somewhere is going to say, God saved me,
Mm,
or Jesus saved me
mm,
because I've been so good. And I used to, and probably still will actually, get absolutely irate at people for saying that because it's unfair to the living, right? Like, oh, so God spared you, but all these other people were killed because they didn't matter.
right.
If the one is true, then the other is also. But if none of us are that significant simply because we're in human form, then it takes on a different meaning. There's a different kind of perspective then. It's a bit more haphazard as to who survives and who doesn't.
Right. And it makes me think back on when I had said the idea of, uh, going forward, the yugas and all that kind of stuff. It's not that one person matters. It's not that some hero will rise. And even if they did, the hero themselves still needs the support of the people around them. Someone has to pave the road. Someone has to make the clothes. Someone has to do the medical attention. Everyone has to play their role to get in it. Even if you have the one central being, that central being is still no good on their own.
Right.
So there's no like no one is insignificant in
No,
the
it's not
anything. Yeah,
we're not insignificant. It's
right,
just a different significance,
right. Yes.
right? And on the earthly plane on
Mm,
this planet, there is a lot of significance that we have attached as an
right.
integral part of being here, but it doesn't translate. It doesn't move into the spiritual realm with you. It stays here. So I'm not saying anybody's insignificant,
Mm,
but neither is anyone more significant.
right.
And I think that is something we spend an awful lot of time trying to decide who is the most significant and who
Yes.
gets to be most worthy. And also before the podcast started, we were talking about religions having
Mm,
intermediaries all the time.
yes.
And the one that most people know about is Catholicism, where you have to go through the priest.
Hmm.
He's your he's
And the
your
Pope.
representative of Jesus
Yeah.
on earth, right?
Mm,
And the preachers in evangelical Christianity will tell you that they're giving you the word of God. Now, I would literally say who died and made them God. Like
mm,
how does that happen? It doesn't. But we buy into it as somebody has to be superior. And this is
yeah.
significant, I think, something to shed the belief that somebody else is more than you,
Mm,
that you are less than someone, or that you are more than someone. Because we're not, and it
right.
doesn't matter. That's the thing, is it doesn't freaking matter. You can have millions of dollars or not.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter.
Well, that's it. Several things came out of this for me, but that particular one, Like, okay, so use the example, right? So this season, me and Michaela are casting spells that are making changes to the matrix, quote unquote. But that makes us significant to the spirits we're working with and significant for that task. But we're not curing cancer. We're not, you know, keeping kids from becoming orphans. We're not going and searching for people in the middle of the night. We're not solving crimes. We're not doing all those other, but those people are significant in their story. There's the word I was kind of thinking was probably going to come up. So in another story, we're not significant, but someone else is. So it's not, it's not a question of being significant or not significant because you're significant somewhere. Keep using that word. Everyone matters. It's just you may not matter in every place you're in.
And I would say the converse is true.
Right.
None of us matter in that.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a delicate line to tread
Mm-hmm.
with words, right? It doesn't mean you don't matter. Never mind, forget it. You might as well jump off the nearest
Right.
bridge. It doesn't mean that. What it means is don't get in your own way. Nothing is that
Right.
significant. It's like this is just it's a thing. You're here, you're experiencing it.
Right.
Don't take yourself so seriously.
Mm.
That's kind of what I'm trying to get to with
Right.
the not significant. It's like
Yes.
self and not self. If you look at Buddhism, and that seems to come up every week as well,
Mm.
Buddhism, but it's like I it took me a little bit when I first studied Buddhism to learn what they meant exactly by non-attachment. And the typical Western mistake is to think it means detachment, that you are not attached to anything, you're
Mm.
not bothered by anything, you don't have deep relationships, that kind of thing. You live with nothing in your house, you sleep on the floor, all this kind of um, extreme stuff.
Right.
Think Gandhi, right? But and by the way, it cost an awful lot of money to keep Gandhi in that poverty lifestyle
Yes.
and all the people following him. And don't get me started on Gandhi, but it's not going to be what you think.
Mm.
But anyway, that little sidetrack. Uh wow, that really did derail me. Holy smokes. Gandhi just stood there pulling faces at me.
Yeah. Well,
Yes, we have a
again,
thing.
right? It's the to quote another TV show.
Ah, yes, self and not self.
Yeah. But I was going to say, so in the face of eternity, you have infinite number of moments.
Right.
So it's not the number of moments you have that's significant. It's what you do with those moments at any given time that are significant.
And it doesn't need to be measured by somebody else.
Right.
But the end part to the
Mm.
being attached and
Right.
detached, it's not detachment. You can absolutely be attached to living your life on this planet, to your relationships, for example. But you also understand, and you
Mm-hmm.
also understand that everything has a cycle, everything
Yeah.
has its time. And when it's time for that thing to go, whatever it is, whether it's an item of clothing, your favorite painting, or a person very close to you, when it's time for that to change, the key there is to not be attached, to let it go,
Yes.
to let it do what it needs to naturally do. And this can be in relationships where a relationship comes to an end. A lot of people we find in society will spend time saying, well, that person shouldn't have done this, and I expected this for the rest of my life, and I
Right.
expected that, and I wanted, and just listen to that. That's a whole set of expectations that nobody needs to meet. Let them go. Like you'll be an
Yes.
awful lot happier if you're not attached to how something looks or what the outcome is going to be. And that is what Buddhist non-attachment is about.
Right.
It's not needing the outcome to look how you think.
Yes.
So when you're working with magic too, be aware it's not necessarily, in fact, it isn't going to look how you think.
Mm.
It can't, because your thinking is too limited for what the magic can do. This is true for all of us. That's the whole point. right? You're going to learn some things, you're going to see some things, you're going to experience some things. And afterwards, you might be able to look back and say, ah, that's what that was. But you're not going to know it beforehand. If you did, you wouldn't need to do it.
Right.
And
Well,
that's a big part of what we're all doing here.
all right. I don't have this worded properly because I'm being told not to do it just yet. And I know
Okay.
it's because I don't have the wording. I know exactly why it's not just yet. But it has to do with magic and why people use magic in the first place.
Oh, there's so many differences for that.
Yeah.
Some people want to have a sense of power, and
Mm.
that's how they feel they can get it. Some are curious, they just want to try it and see. And others feel that that's what they're called to do. And there's a whole range in
Mm.
between. I mean, and it can be a combination even.
Yeah.
Those are just some examples, as many reasons as there are people.
Hmm.
Again, clarity of intentions like pretty huge.
Well, I think part of it, that's what I was going to say is that not exactly those specific words, but to use magic properly requires, get Elmer Fudd, requires your raw capacity to use it because your raw capacity to do the things necessary to do magic properly is what's relevant, and which is what the push of Hecate is trying to get across. Like I'm saying, right? Like going back to the whole using the Vegeta thing. I'm sitting here trying to convince human beings to become a warrior race when that's not the proper thing that needs to be said, but it does feel like that.
Right. And
And
that's how
yeah.
in stories,
Mhm.
whether you're looking at stories from the Buddha or you're looking at stories from the Bible or wherever you're looking at your stories from, you'll find contradictions in there.
Right.
And I've said this on a previous podcast, it used to drive me nuts. I studied comparative religions
Mhm.
because it fascinates me, it tells me a lot about how people think. And I've always been interested in how people think. Um, but the contradictions, nobody ever explained those to me properly for like years and
Mhm.
years. And then finally it was Buddhism that uncovered that one for me as well, with at different times, different people need different truths. They're all true, they're just not the same. That's quite profound when you think about it, because
Yeah.
some of the stories, particularly if you look in the New Testament, they're diametrically opposed. Like you have one story, and then 3 pages later, exactly the opposite thing is said. How can that possibly make sense? As long
Yeah.
as you don't keep it linear, it does.
Yeah. I'm
And we're
glad you
not
brought that
linear
up.
creatures. We keep trying to be linear, but we're not.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Not the linear stuff specifically, but what's making me think, right? So part of my brain is looking at what's going on with Hecate right now. And part of my brain is going, oh, she's looking for soldiers, which is not the right, which is not specifically what she's doing, but my brain is interpreting as she needs people to develop a certain skill set.
I'm getting the word messengers. Would that work?
Yes, she needs people to develop a skill set so they can perform a task.
Okay.
And I usually, my brain first interpretation is usually, oh, you need soldiers. Because that's what we do with soldiers. We need certain people group to do a certain thing. And it's dramatic because they're probably going to go out and die. So we train soldiers to do a very specific thing, and we make a whole organization around it. But yes,
So it's community again, isn't it?
yes. But some people need to be prepared ahead of time to help build that community, to foster that community.
Mm. Well, some people are building it, some are
Mhm.
shaping it, and others are a part of it.
Right.
And then still others will try and break it,
Hmm.
because that's how people roll. That's what we do. And if you look at everything that's happening in society right now, it's pretty freaking dire. Like it's bad news, man, all over the place. But it's also very cyclical
Hmm.
and kind of predictable in a way. Not the exact way it looks, but the fact that it's here.
Hmm.
It's not a surprise. At least I don't feel that it is. How it looks is, the shape that it takes is like, wow, how did we get there? But at the same time, I mean, Daniel, you've said how many times about the great revealing that's going on right now.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
that's how we're there. This
Mm.
isn't new, this isn't different. This is just visible.
Yes.
So in that regard, it's predictable. And you've got people who are trying to fix things, break things, change things, keep them the same. We got everybody pulling in different directions at once.
Well, saying how predictable it is, this has nothing to do with having to be able to tap into the floor or anything like that. So if you look at, like, say, an empire being built, well, the people who built the empire, they built it because it was survival. And then they figure if they built a big enough empire, then their survival will be assured. So that group that built it, they had a motivation, they had a reason to do things, they were tapping into their resources to make it happen. The generations that follow, sure, the first few generations, because they hear the stories and they know the people who were in the struggle, and might even, some of them might have been born while the struggle was happening. So they know and they can maintain that level, at least to some degree or another. But over time, when the initial struggle, even though you know of it, when it's out of living memory and all the emotions and stuff like that start to drain away, well, the people who are maintaining the empire, like, this is a lot of work to maintain an empire. And why are we maintaining an empire? Because they don't have a current visceral understanding of what's so important about the empire. And then the empire starts to crumble because each preceding generation is kind of like, why am I making all these efforts? Not necessarily consciously, but like, why am I putting in all this effort to maintain all these structures? Why am I putting myself in a position like, because when you look at political intrigue, that's a lot of stuff. Like, you never know who's going to backstab you. You never know who's going to support you. You never know where things are coming from. And then, like, I always say, like, sometimes the worst part of politics is the voters because they're not unified. So when you're trying to present a message and not everyone likes it, you're like, okay, how do I get everyone on board when not everyone, wants to follow my message? So eventually, an empire crumbles because there's no constant stream of why it was important to have the empire in the first place. And conversely, maybe the empire is not important anymore.
That's I can think of so many examples all at once that echo
Right.
that. And a simple one for people to consider at home is, I used to have this friend some time ago. Our kids were born at pretty much the same time,
Right.
and she got a lot of trauma in her background. This
Right.
is where her responses would come from. But she would literally scream at her kid for something and nothing, like whatever he did. And one of her favorite or frequent refrains was, "You have no idea
Yeah.
how easy you've got it." And
Yes.
and I would say to her, "You're correct. He doesn't. He doesn't have
You're
that
absolutely
knowledge.
right.
He doesn't have that knowledge because you did everything you could for him to not know how bad it could be. You took your trauma and you didn't want to give it to him. But now you're giving it to him by telling him he doesn't have it
Right.
with all that anger, right?" So she was still traumatizing the kid, but not in the way she was traumatized.
Mm.
She was so mad at him for not being grateful for something he had no idea
Yes.
existed. And that, I think, is empires reach that point
Hmm.
where people are born into it. Or think of somebody who's born into money.
Right.
We have somebody at the helm in this country right now who was born into money. He has no idea how to make money. He has no idea what its value is. He has no idea what to do with it. So he does bad things because he has no frame of reference and no attachment to anybody else's frame of reference.
Mm.
So, if you haven't experienced the struggle, or you haven't experienced these things that cause you to create, then correct. You don't
Hmm.
know what it's like. That is precisely true. And you get the results of that. It's
Yeah.
it's a never ending, it's literally, we're back to the pendulum where it's going from one
Hmm.
side to the other. you know poverty and therefore you fight to get out of it. And then you get to this place where you know riches because your predecessors fought to get out of poverty, and you throw it all away because it doesn't mean anything. This
Right.
pendulum swings.
Well, and that's so yes, to go with my point, because that's a good down to earth example actually of that. That's a great way to put it. So you don't have those, our body doesn't have that reaction then anymore. So we're not allotting resources to maintain those things.
Right. We don't have the memory for it.
Yeah. And so because we're not intuitive, since we don't have an instinctual allotment of those resources, then they don't get allotted. And then those things aren't maintained.
Correct. And we can even go into nutrition and look at weight
Hmm.
loss,
Yeah.
right? You start off gung ho and like, yeah, I'm going to do all the things because you really don't like not fitting into your clothes, or somebody said you were fat, or whatever it
Hmm.
is, right? And so that pain pushes you forward to do amazing things. And as the weight comes off, you get further away from the memory of what it was
Hmm.
like to not be happy in your body for whatever reason.
Right.
And so the old habits that you actually kind of liked come back in
Yes.
because it's not strong enough to keep them out. Your memory, your living memory, is fading on that. And if our living memory didn't fade, then the human race would have died out before it got going because
Yeah.
women wouldn't keep going through childbirth. That's an absolute fact. They wouldn't have, and certainly there would never be more than one kid.
Yeah.
So, because it's something that you just don't remember the detail, right?
Yeah.
You just you can tell the story, but you don't have the detail.
Yeah. Actually, you know what, to stir the pot? I'm going to throw this joke out there.
You are not going to stir the pot, I'm
I
shocked.
know. I know. So, so which is worse, the pain of childbirth or getting kicked in the nuts?
Right? And if you're male, I'm going to say you're going to choose the second one.
And I'm going to tell you why that's the answer. Because no male after being kicked in the nuts asks to be kicked in the nuts again, but women will have more children.
Right? Yeah. But I mean, that living memory thing, that memory
Yeah.
is all important.
Well, there's also more forces at play behind having a child than there is not getting
Yes.
kicked in the nuts. But I just thought
Yes.
that joke was
That's
kind of like,
that's just straight up
yeah,
abusive. Yeah, but look at current events, right? The Holocaust is still
right.
in some people's living memory.
Yes.
They were children. But the vast majority of humankind has forgotten or never saw in real
Well,
time what that looked like.
yes, because even World War II in general is starting to fade.
Yeah. And so people are just, we now have the American movies of G.I. Joes and yeah, Rambo's going to come and fix
Mhm.
everything and booyah and all this stuff is in the collective consciousness. And that's now what people are anticipating it's going to look like.
Yeah, and it's funny. I'm now of two minds on something. At one point, I got really sick of Vietnam movies or movies, you know, hiding that they're Vietnam movies, you know,
Right.
because, well, yeah, because it ended during the 70s. And so everything for the next decade, it was in the public psyche. And now it's also out of the public psyche. But you would think, and I'm going to say Operation Desert Storm, right, didn't stay the same way that Vietnam did in the public
Right.
psyche. Because it only had like a window of 5 years after it was over. And it was like, huh, I was expecting to hear about this for the next 20 years.
Because it was more sanitized
Yeah. Yes.
and shooting rockets at targets
Mm.
and target eliminated. This is very much othering. There's no humanity in that,
Right.
whereas Vietnam was all about the people and the inhumanity, man's
Yeah.
inhumanity to man kind of thing. And I've been to Vietnam and had a look at the Cu Chi tunnels,
Right.
and most they are tiny, and they built them
Yeah.
that way because the Vietnamese could fit in them, but the Americans couldn't because
Right.
they're too big.
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that I saw there, it's like, wow, This is invention of necessity, and it was nasty. Like
Mm.
some of the things that were thought up of is mind blowing, but the things that were inflicted on them was also mind blowing. And it's a war that this country lost, but you wouldn't think so. And certainly not from the movies, right? This is
Yeah.
rewriting people's memories now and rewriting how that looks, how we feel about it, how we feel about ourselves in that. And by the way, how does anybody think Vietnam feels about that? Huh?
Yeah.
Like let's consider that. And for anybody that's been to Vietnam, they are very, very nice people by and large in Vietnam, like really lovely people, and did not deserve what befell them. But, it did.
Yeah. It's
And that happens a lot too. People get stuff happen to them that really is unwarranted. And yet,
yes.
there it is.
Yeah. And so yeah. So that's what I was going to say, right? Part of the empire is crumbling because we're accelerating into that lack of memory and therefore lack of that visceral response to it. And so when you start losing that visceral response, right? If someone wants to maintain the empire, then they have to come up with something new. And that usually just even makes it worse. But that's where you start making up enemies instead of having actual enemies.
Right. Because peacetime is just too difficult to maintain. Let's have a war. I mean, it's time honored um, strategy for any government that's
Mm-hmm.
beleaguered is to start a war. I mean, Argentina did that with Britain in the early 80s over the Malvinas or the
Mm-hmm.
Falkland Islands, depending
Right.
on which side you're on. I mean, this is a bunch of sheep farmers, and there's not a lot of room there, but Argentina, the ruling military junta, were
Mm-hmm.
having problems, and so they needed a distraction. And people will rally around a war. They will go gung ho for a war, and
Yeah.
that's what they did. And it went fine for them until they lost it, and then
Yeah.
it didn't go so well.
Yeah.
But that's what human beings do all the time, and it's part of that pendulum swinging backwards and forwards. So I guess a point that is coming out of all of this for
Mm-hmm.
me, for this discussion right now, is not to, like, yes, you need to know what's going on, and yes, where you have a part, play that part, but don't get lost in it because there are other things for you to do. And this is actually something that human beings are predictably horrible to other human beings, and yet there are helpers. And this is just a fact of being on this planet. Which are you going to be? And can you be effective in that?
Yeah.
Whether that's mundane or magically, you have some decisions to make, some clarity, some house cleaning, what's junk and what
Yeah.
stays.
Well, that's the thing, right? So what there's two things out of this, right? One of the things is, so I don't want to leave it on a note of it's inevitable that an empire will fall because it's not
But it is.
inevitable. Well, I'll
I
put it
would
this
say
way.
it is. I
I'll
would
say
say
it
it
this
is. They
way.
all have.
Yeah, I'll say it this way. Right now, sorry, this empire will fall. How to word this? Because there's a way of wording this. The empire can fall without everyone going backwards. We have an opportunity to keep moving forward.
The pendulum is swinging in the opposite direction to last time. Make that what you will.
Yeah, but we have an opportunity to move forward instead of moving backwards.
We always have that opportunity,
A
I think.
pendulum can move in three-dimensional space.
I think we always have that opportunity to
Right.
move
Yes.
forward. It's not inevitable. Okay, so here's the thing: the empire may crumble, but it's not inevitable that everybody within it does.
Right. The empire crumbling could just be the shedding of your chrysalis.
Right? It's the great reveal.
Yes.
What was there really? What are we all talking
Or
about that
yes,
was,
instead of
what's
the
from the
empire
start?
crumbling, yes, instead of the empire crumbling and taking everyone with it, we have an opportunity for the empire to crumble and to learn from it and move on to something bigger right away. I say right away but we're talking cosmic time. So,
Right. Yeah,
so
it's going to impact, it will bring out different aspects of different people, as everything does,
mhm,
right? In human design, you behave differently depending on who you're with and depending on what centers become um, fixed because of the person around you. And it's only defined while they're there, right? That's one way of looking at the differences. But also, people bring out different things in you depending on how you view them,
yes.
right? Like think of the three faces that people have. You have the one face that you show in public
Hmm.
where people don't really get to see who you are. You have a little bit more of you showing through when you're at home, if
Hmm.
you're in a safe environment.
Right.
And then you have the you who is left when you're on your own. And that's a more authentic person, typically speaking. But how often do we say, oh, that person did that thing? That's not like them.
Mm.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, it is, or they wouldn't have done it. It's just not like the version you saw. So that's so what will come forward? Which facet is going to be polished on that diamond? And which one's going to be most prominent? And that's something we'll all know for ourselves as we go through it, right? We're being
Yes.
forged by fire,
Hmm.
and we'll know, sometimes you think you're going to behave a certain way in a situation, and then the situation occurs and you discover that actually that's not what I'm going to do at all. And there's a dissonance there that you have to sort of reconcile, right? Like you might think, oh, if I saw somebody beating somebody up, I'll go over there and save that person. Would you though?
Yes. That's, you know what? That's an important part of cleaning house. One, sometimes you'll find out you actually are that person. You won't always. That's why it's always better to ask yourself these questions way before they happen, and you can plan accordingly.
And also be aware that it might not happen the way you think it does.
Yes.
And you might not feel about it the way you think you're going to feel about it. Again, looking at the Holocaust, how many people said, never again, this is
Mm.
terrible, look at what happened, da, 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 and they are currently doing exactly that thing. Many of those people who said, this is awful, it should never
Mhm.
happen again, are currently recreating it as we
Yeah.
speak. And they're
Well,
telling themselves that they're not. But
yeah.
if you hold up a mirror,
Hmm.
yes, they are.
Well,
So is that what they expected?
mm,
Probably not.
and that's the thing about, well, judging and labeling. Because when you put a judgment and a label on something, a lot of people stop learning about it.
Right.
And they don't know what brought you to that condition in the first place. I've seen this with kids who have abusive parents. It's like, wow, I'm never going to be like them. I'm like, well, hold on. You are their children. You have their genetics. So why did they go that way? Because you run the risk of going that way.
Well, that's more a learned behavior,
Yeah.
actually. And yes, everybody runs the risk of repeating the cycle. That's one of
Yes.
the things that I work on with coaching
Hmm.
clients is undoing the impact of the trauma that you've had. Because, my own childhood was pretty
Okay.
awful. And I've worked on the repercussions of that, but I've also benefited from the lessons that I learned,
Yeah.
right? I mean, learning about behavior before you can speak properly is unusual. But it was necessary. So there's there's these cycles
Mhm.
that you will repeat them if you don't learn them. And if
Yes.
you don't learn from them, you can't help but repeat them. Does that
Yeah.
mean it's okay? No, you don't get a free pass. This is where you have to sort out your shit, right? This is where you get to figure out, all right, how am I going to do that differently? And on occasion, I mean, we've all found ourselves, you're in a certain situation and you say something, and you're like, whoa, was that my mom?
Yeah.
Or was that my dad? And you've just said something that you swore as a teenager, I am never going to say that.
Yeah.
And as soon as you say that to yourself, you are totally going to say that. It is absolutely going to come out because we all do it. It's there. It's in you to come forward. But which facet are you going to shine? Which
Yeah.
part of you are you cultivating?
Right. And that's it. That's exactly the thing, right? Like if you're not aware of that capacity, if you're not aware of your own capacity to do the thing that was done to you, then you don't see it coming when it happens. You don't
Right.
see yourself making that decision, but you don't know what would bring you to that decision. So if you want to avoid making those decisions, you have to figure out what's within yourself.
Hmm.
So like, like when we had discussed power, right? Power doesn't corrupt, power reveals. So if you go in seeking power, like in this case through magic, well, where is your when people look at you and they say you've been corrupted by your power, where do you think that would come from? So that you don't give people that opportunity. I mean, that's not the best motivation, but to look at it to see where is there who you are or are you corrupted? Because odds are you weren't corrupted. It was just who you were and you didn't recognize that part of you.
And sometimes,
Mm.
yeah, the conditions are right to bring out certain aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And where my mind went just then, as you know, I do behavior
Right.
analysis and working for applied behavior analysis companies. I've worked for four now, and I can tell you they all have something in common, which is, apart from behavior analysis, they start off being put together by people who have the best of intentions and they want to do a great job and they know what it's like to work in a toxic environment because that too is common to apply behavior analysis. Unfortunately, the work environment tends to be pretty awful. um, and so they start a new company and they go in all shiny and full of the best intentions, and then they realize, oh hey, if I have more clients in here, then we're getting more cash. So if I just get these
Mm-hmm.
people to work longer hours, and off they go. And it is downhill at a rapid pace of knots. And so many companies open another center and then another one, and then another one. And then they're getting into double digits on how many centers they have. And what do they have in common? But pushing everybody that works there to work as hard as possible while telling them that, well, we're all here for the kids and we're all
Yeah.
here for the families. Um, Bullshit, because actually you're there because you need to get paid. Would you be doing this for free? No. So, it's not true, but it's something that happens over and over again everywhere I look. Four different states now, and it's the same. It just doesn't change. And people try and they don't get past that sort of the corruption of getting comfortable and wanting to be more comfortable.
Hmm. Yes. It's funny. This just came to me as you said that. It's the why I don't buy the idea that if you made a universal basic income, that everyone would stop doing stuff. Because if your universal basic income is just enough to get by, people will want more.
Well, that's why communism doesn't work, right? Because communism, I've said it before, I will continue to say it, communism is brilliant on paper. It really is. It's so logical, it makes great sense, and everybody is taken care of. But when you apply it to people, it doesn't work because people aren't like that. And I mean, look at the COVID pandemic, for example. Wear a mask to keep the people around you safe. You would think that that was not a particularly controversial request, and yet people lost their dignity over it. They lost their sanity over it, and there were big fights over who was pro mask and who's against
Yeah.
mask. And in the US at least, there was a big push to rat your neighbor out if they weren't wearing a mask and this kind of thing. And it went to insane levels all over whether you wear a mask or not. It started to mean which political party you were for. It
Yeah.
started to mean just all kinds of things. And I worked for a place that was, because it was a healthcare type
Mm.
situation, I was mandated. I had to have the COVID vaccine or lose my livelihood.
Mm.
It got to that point. Wow, what happened? That went kind of nuts in a hurry. Could you have predicted that beforehand? Not really. At least I
I wouldn't
couldn't.
have predicted that in the Western world.
I couldn't predict
Yeah.
that. Like I wouldn't have seen that coming. And people were literally losing friends over it and stopping talking to family members. And there was just an awful lot going on. And the mask was the focus, but it wasn't really. Like it became the symbol, if you will. It still is.
Yeah, it's that's a weird one because my stepmother works in the medical field and she works at a clinic and they would call people called in daily basis, like chewing them out over the vaccines and stuff. And it's like, could you like because we had ended up not getting to an argument, but I could tell I had hit a sore spot unintentionally. And it was like she revealed, well, yeah, because they like every day they get calls from people giving them shit for the vaccine. It's like, well, they didn't invent the vaccine. What are you on them for? Yes, they give them out because that's what they were told to do, but they didn't make it up. They didn't do all those things.
And honestly, that was their job. And
Yeah,
with the best will in the world, what else were you going to do?
yeah.
You know, you could try taking the horse medication if you wanted to, but it's not going so well. And right now we have, massive measles outbreak
Mm,
going on. And in Texas, there are kids in hospital with vitamin A poisoning because the bright spark who's
mm,
telling everybody not to have the vaccine,
mm.
while admitting he vaccinated his own kids, and I'm sure grandkids as well,
Well,
um,
yeah,
people are now getting vitamin A poisoning.
yeah.
Like it's gotten out of hand, and the pandemic was kind of the start of that downfall, if you will. We have a lot of
Mm,
rocks falling all over the place right now. It really is time to figure out where you want to be when the avalanche
yeah,
comes your way. Like where are you going to stand on that? And have you found yourself a good spot?
yeah.
Is your perspective good? Is your mental health good? Are
Well,
you
that's the primary one, right?
it actually is. I think it's paramount above everything else because your decisions are going to come from your mental state. And if you're not in good shape or as good a shape as you can manage, like if you're not looking after your mental health, then I would say hold off on any magic right now and go work on that for a bit first.
Mm-hmm.
Because magic is going to drain that, test it, and challenge it. And you don't want to do that.
Yeah. There's nothing coming in from anyone, but my whole understanding of this episode is that it's a just a discussion and throwing out ideas of what you need to what you could be looking at to clean house. And yeah, your motivations for things, what you're willing to do and what you're willing not to do. And that's important, right? Doing magic, what are your boundaries?
And what's really important is what is your foundation like?
Hmm.
And the foundation, think of that concrete slab. Your foundation is your mental health and your health, the health of your perspectives, if you
Hmm.
will. Like, are you looking through a jaundiced lens? Are you looking through a negative viewpoint or overly optimistic? Like, where are you on that scale? And can you get in a solid place? If you think martial arts, you have different stances, right? And there's that solid stance where somebody
Right.
can run at you and try and push you over, and you ain't going anywhere because you have your foundation
Hmm.
solidly. If you look at boxers, a boxer has a stance that you're not going to easily shove them over. You're not going to do that. I
Right.
actually learned boxing and I used to teach
Mm.
boxing, so I know what I'm talking about on that one.
Yeah.
And I did a little bit of martial arts too,
Hmm.
but the whole the boxing thing, there's a world of difference between somebody who doesn't understand the basics and have their
Hmm.
foundation down and somebody who does. And that, I think, is a really good metaphor for everything we're going through right now. Where is your foundation at? Do you have a solid stance? Are you looking in the right direction? Are you as prepared as anybody can be to deal with whatever's coming your way?
Hmm.
And can you let it go if it doesn't look the way you think it's supposed to look? Because it won't. It's not going to look that way. Nothing does.
Yeah. So I'm being prompted to do the reminder of the more you know yourself, the more your subconscious mind or whatever you want to put it as your, which is your resource manager, is going to give you resources to do what you need to do. So when you're cleaning of your house, learn yourself. Sorry. So there was, okay. There's one of your cats because there was a third element to this or a fourth, I'm trying to think. So be yourself, love yourself, know yourself. So be yourself, love yourself, but know yourself because it's hard to be yourself and love yourself if you don't know yourself.
And then the other
Mm.
panel, if you will, is always there, which is be curious.
Yes,
Because even if you think you know yourself, still be curious, just in case there's a bit you missed.
yes. Well, and to throw in the human design thing, and I think we've definitely discussed this, whether it was in a podcast episode or not. We definitely discussed this, right? Because when you're in the presence of other people and you're looking at your gates and stuff like that, how they align with other people also affects how you behave in presence of other people. But you
And
already know that without human design, that you know with certain people you behave a certain way, and with other people you behave another way.
absolutely. And also, what they have defined and what you
Mm-hmm.
have defined is going to interact
Mm-hmm.
differently depending. So that there are so many variables, and honestly, they're all in human design. Like you can
Yes.
find them, but you have to really want them. I mean, I'm writing a book on human design, and it's there's a lot in there. And if you want to try and figure it out for yourself from that book, you will be able to be prepared to spend a lot of time on it because it's going to take a hot minute. There's a lot there. And then if you want to know how that works with other people, well, then you got to work out their stuff as well. And I
Yeah.
suggest that you might not have enough capacity for that because it is a lot of work, but whatever. Point is, there's a lot of opportunities and there's a lot of variables that change how you show up. So if you think you know yourself, under what circumstances are you
Yeah.
that person?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So all part of considerance when you're cleaning house. All things to consider when you're cleaning house.
What really is important?
Yeah.
Actually, one more thing that I've thought of, I don't know that I thought of, it came up, is when you clean house, it's really good to have a system, to have a way of evaluating what stays and what goes. And so in the mundane, when I'm moving house, I will typically pick up an item and I'll look at it and say, okay, do I want to have to unpack this? And if the answer is no, that's a pain in the ass, then it goes. And if the answer is, yep, it's worth my time and space for that, then it stays. So I have a system. I know someone else who her system is to look at stuff and say, well, how much space is this taking up and how
Mm-hmm.
much does that space cost per square foot in my house? Like it's a little more complicated than I like to get,
Right.
but it works for her. Um, and then someone else I know has a system of when she's shopping, she'll look at something and say, well, how many hours do I have to work to be able to buy this?
Right.
Do I want to give 4 hours of my life for this item? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. She doesn't want the thing that much. So it's her system.
Yeah.
But
I do that one from time to time.
I recommend having a system
Yeah.
when you're cleaning house. Like what's your measurement? How are you going to evaluate what beliefs, what approaches, what perspectives, whichever thing you're looking at, how do you evaluate what stays and what goes?
Yeah, that's the because everything you keep demands some of your energy.
It does. It
So
it
do you want
takes
to spend energy on it? Yeah.
it takes something from you in order to be there, whether it's spiritual, whether it's
Mm.
physical, it takes something from you to take up that space in your life. So Yeah, have a system to evaluate.
Yeah, it's funny because I always say I'm not very materialistic, but the reason for that is because I learned, early on having a trickster teacher of that's a lot of energy demand when you have a trickster teacher. And so my kind of mindset was am I willing to spend energy on this? And for most things, no, I'm not. It's like do I really need this? No. Like, is it neat to have? Would it be cool to have for a few days? Sure. But do I want this permanent part of my repertoire? No, because I'll have to maintain it. I'll have to do things. I'll have to clean it, whatever, recalibrate it, whatever, depending what the device is. Like, and that's more energy I'm willing to put into it, so I'm not buying it. And so it leaves
Yeah.
me with a very simple lifestyle,
Here's a true story
right?
of a couple that I know who live in Wales in the UK, and they've been married for 40 something years now. Like these guys have been married long time, two adult kids, etc., etc. And they hate each other. They are so horrible to each other.
Right.
I can't even express it adequately here. They say some hideous things to each other. They will not separate and they will not divorce because they both love the house they live in and neither of them are prepared to give it up.
Mm,
So they have literally spent more of their lives than not in a relationship where each can't stand the other person and would be gleeful if they got run over by a bus. And yet they will not give up the material things of living in that house. They love the house so much, both of them. Now, that do you think maybe some evaluating needs to go on there and perhaps some different perspectives? Because that is an entire life between them. That's like 84 years
yeah.
of living in one place because they don't want to try something else. Holy smokes. Like just think of how epic that is. And who do you know who's doing something similar?
Well, it's kind of like you know, you end up I don't know the word well, I'll say it and then we'll let it go at that. So sometimes someone does something that's so like against who you are, but they do it so masterfully that you can't help but kind of respect it, even though you find it completely terrible. But you just look at what it took to make it happen, how much effort, how much planning, how much stuff you had to go through to make this thing work out. And it makes me think of that marriage. It's like there's almost something commendable by how horrible it is.
It's quite legendary. I
Yeah.
mean, the situation between the two of them and the things they say to each other
Mm.
are so horrendous that I can't imagine voluntarily living with that. And yet that is what they both do.
Yeah.
It's voluntary. They don't have to be there, but they won't give up that material thing. I think each is trying to outlive the other. I mean, it is literally a battle to the last
Yeah.
day. So think about the perspectives that those people have to have in order to show up for that every day. For crying out loud, you wake up in the morning and that's what your day is going to look like.
Yeah.
Wow, that is some strong attachment, right?
Yeah.
Attachment to the granite walls of that house.
Mm.
I mean, we're talking an old stone farmhouse here, but still, really, it's granite walls.
The ability to commit to that cause so thoroughly.
And it's just so fascinating,
Hmm.
and nobody understands why. That looks at this like, yeah, it's a nice house, but it's a nice house. There's lots of nice houses in the world,
Yeah.
and that is somebody who totally failed to clean house, totally failed to look at other possibilities. Gosh, life could be so much nicer without having to deal with that every day for both of them. I mean, they both choose this. Wow, that's mind blowing.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, for the listeners, before you get stuck in that kind of lifestyle, if you're not in one of those, and I hope you're not, clean house.
And if you're in one, for goodness sakes, clean house.
Yes.
Phew,
Clean
nobody
house or
admires
clean
it,
house? I recommend clean house.
right?
But yeah, that's I almost want to say on that note we should end, but it's not done yet.
Okay.
Okay, so what have we done? I know I've already said, right? The core of it seems to me part of the motivation for this episode, especially from Hecate's perspective, is to use your wording, she wants messengers. So she wants people prepared to do what needs to be done. That's her, we'll say motivation.
People who are equipped to do it.
Yeah. She wants people equipped to do it. And I don't think it necessarily has to be for just her specifically. You're not going to go out into the world specifically agents of Hecate, but you will be wielders of magic. And yes, I already dropped the fictional worldview of it. As much as it'd be fun and it might help you through your learning, but you won't be levitating, throwing lightning bolts, fireballs, whatever. But
Oh,
you will have yeah, but you will be connected to the flow. You will know how to work with the flow and whatever else it is you're needed to do, or well, enjoy it. If it's you, let it be you. If it's not you, then just be yourself. But if it's you, I'm being reminded, eat the fucking cake and move forward. Almost a call to action.
it is a call to action, I would say.
Well,
And a
yes.
big part of that cleaning house thing too is getting rid of the distractions, the things that
Mm-hmm.
simply don't matter and hold you down. Oh, that's where that house thing came in with that
Mm-hmm.
couple because they are both, you might as well have nailed them to the rocks. Like they're
Right.
so pinned down, they cannot move. They are so stuck in there. And that's really important to not be like that. They're a great example of what not to do.
I wonder if it's almost worth an investigation on a spiritual sense to see what that house is about.
It's got a really strong hold on them. Yeah, it would be interesting.
Because if you have that much hate every day,
Right?
you would think you'd give at some point.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And that is an area where there's a lot of witchcraft going on,
Hmm.
a lot of witchcraft around there. So I wonder what they're feeding with that.
Yes, that's the question. And that's the question.
What are you feeding?
Hmm.
Oh, and there's a story that
Yeah.
often gets told of the two wolves,
Yes.
right? The angry wolf and the happy wolf, or
Hmm.
the nice wolf and the evil
Yes.
wolf, however you want to look at it. And which one do you feed? Whichever one you feed grows. And I came across a different perspective on that one, which is why don't you feed both and make friends with them?
Yes.
I like that because it's, when people say, oh, wrestle with your demons or slay your
Yeah.
dragons, particularly when they say slay your dragons, it's like,
Right.
mind? No, don't do that. Like, literally, I will tell people off for that. Don't slay your dragons, make friends with
Right.
them. Same thing with your demons.
Well, yeah, because I mean, the
That's
further
your
back you go
shadow
in the
side.
folklore, right, the view of demons is different. So,
Hmm. But this is your shadow side
yeah.
simply. Don't try and outrun your demons or starve them or
Mm.
something. Like feed them and make friends with them. But that is not the same as whatever's going on over there. Like I don't know what's happening in that house, but that is not. Yeah, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
I need to check the ley lines in that area. Honestly, there's something happening. There's got to be. You
That's
can't.
what you have to wonder, right? Like, people are capable of tremendous obsession and stuff like that. But that's two people living in the same house with that level of obsession.
For more than 40 years? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty wild. I mean, the
Well,
house has
and
been there since
yeah,
1700s, so there's a lot there.
yeah. Well, and that's the other one, right? And you know what? For people listening, what the inspiration for saying, "Oh, someone should check it out," like spiritually, is because sometimes you're going to run across that. You're going to not be able to fathom someone's motivation. It's because it's not a material motivation.
And it gives you a clue when it's something as epic
Hmm.
as this. It's been going on so long, and so much vitriol. Wow, it's not just a we don't talk to each other. Oh no, they talk. They
Yeah,
talk, and it's not good. There's nothing pleasant that comes out of that. Um, yeah, it's like watching a train wreck every day.
yeah. Well, and that's what leads you into an interesting world when you start to realize there's not just the material, but there's also that other component to it. And then you start seeing things happening, and you're wondering, oh, which one is motivating this? The material world, or is it the spiritual world motivating this behavior that's happening?
And a little chicken and egg, right? Like which
Yeah.
one started that ball rolling?
Well, yes, because they are intertwined.
Yeah, the one is definitely feeding the other, no question. But
Well, and
it's
again, one of the reasons for the podcast and one of the reasons for starting teaching people in the first place for me was the spirit world is like, okay, you guys have a species that come to a point where you're starting to get into our way. And so now we need to have some kind of entendre and get some kind of thing going where we can both live happily in this world.
right.
And so as you go forward, there's your whole messenger thing is the you're being an ambassador between two worlds.
Hmm. I think we've thrown a lot of things out there today,
We
and
did.
some are going to land, and some are just going to be what? And that's fine. Go for the
Yeah.
things that land.
Well, going into this episode, I understood two things. One, we're not lecturing with the first one. And part of this is a call to action concept, not a complete call to action. I mean, when she said eat fucking cake for the third time, I'm repeating, or fourth time repeating it, it was because it's time to get these things in gear. So, one of the final things you have to do is to make sure you're prepared. And it is by knowing yourself and getting to the core of who you are so that you can function as when you use a lens to focus or when you're looking through a telescope or microscope, well, the more pure your lens, the better your vision.
Mm.
So that idea. So the more you know about yourself, the more you clean house, the better you are as a channel, the better you are for seeing things, the less of your bias is getting in the way of you understanding a situation.
There's a preparedness, a
Mm.
readiness for action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The call to action hasn't quite happened yet, but we're close. We are like super really close. In fact, so much so, all the cards I've pulled lately have been about that.
Mm. Yeah, I've
Like
got some
the
gems.
listeners might have noticed, right? We don't have any spells for the last two episodes, but one was an interview, and we don't have one for this episode. But it's because even Michaela and I are being prepared for the next thing.
Yep. Yep. There's so much going on in so many areas. It's not that we're not busy. We're busy. We're doing and we're preparing. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So
so
don't be attached to the house.
that's right. Yeah. Learn to let things go that need to be let go because that's pretty much the way to be happy. But don't let go of things that aren't meant to be let go yet either.
So have a means to evaluate. Yeah.
Yeah. And on that note, once again, I'm Daniel Dubois.
And I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
Until next time,
Until next time,
and get your shit together. It was thrown in the last second there.
I'm straight.
Yeah.